If you had read the title of this article, you would think that we are still in 2020. You would still think we're in the lockdown. You would still think COVID is spreading rampantly. But no, it is 2025. We know a lot more about the vaccines than we did back then. We know a lot more about COVID itself than we did back then. And here we have, just read the title. JD Vance's 12-year-old relative denied heart transplant because she is unvaccinated. So it's not like she hasn't gotten any of the major vaccines. The vaccines that they're worried about are the COVID and flu vaccines, which, however you feel about vaccines, I'm full support of vaccines. I am not in support of whatever you want to call the COVID-19 jab. It's not a vaccine. It's not made the same way vaccines are made. And it's also for a illness that has a less than 1% chance IFR fatality rate. So it's utterly ridiculous that we have this article even being brought up. It's 2025. COVID is not being spread around as rampant as it was. We know now that it only targets people with comorbidities, so people that are older and people that are overweight or just people that are generally unhealthy. That's who it affects. Just like the flu, just like a lot of illnesses that we get around every year. And it's also I forget what the word is, but it's endemic. It's not going anywhere. We're not going to get rid of COVID. I've been saying that since the lockdowns. COVID is never going away. It's with us forever, but it's not that big of a problem. But so now we have to go through this story of a 12-year-old who's not getting a transplant for her heart because she decided not to get a vaccine that she doesn't need. A 12-year-old Indiana girl who is related to Vice President J.D. Vance has been barred from a spot on a heart transplant list because she's not been vaccinated against COVID-19 and the flu, according to her parents. Adeline Deal, a distant relative of VP by marriage through his half-siblings, was born with two rare heart conditions that her family knew would one day require a transplant. Her mother, Janine Deal, told the Cincinnati Enquirer, Adeline, who was adopted from China when she was 4, was treated at Cincinnati Children's Hospital for nearly 10 years, and her parents hoped she would get the transplant there. So the hospital knew everything about this individual. I mean, they've been working with her basically her entire life. They know her issues, they know her conditions, and I'm sure the doctors there know the family and know their beliefs about the flu and COVID vaccine. And just like I tell my family, I don't get the COVID vaccine, I don't get the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is designed for a specific strain of flu when there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different strains. So the flu changes every year. That's why there's a new flu vaccine every year. And the flu is not all that deadly. If you're a healthy individual, you're not likely to suffer from COVID-19 or the flu. The people that have to worry are the people that already have health issues. So why? And that's the other thing too. If you have heart problems, COVID-19 is known to have side effects that affect your heart and your circulation in your system. So why would you get the COVID-19 vaccine if you already have heart problems that would be dangerous to you? And that's just not a smart thing to do. So instead of taking the vaccine, they opted to just take their chances with getting the virus, which is perfectly fine because then you get natural immunity if you end up being okay with it, which most people are. Like I said, there's a 99% chance that you will be okay from COVID. And a lot of people got upset with me during COVID when I would say that because the media, if you only paid attention to the media, you would think that it was killing half the people on the planet. If it was killing half the people on the planet, yeah, I would have took the vaccine. But it was less than 1%. I'm not taking a vaccine for a less than 1% chance that I'm going to have issues. But this hospital seems to think that it's better that this individual doesn't get a heart transplant, which will guarantee that they don't live a long life, simply because they didn't want to take a vaccine for something that probably wouldn't have affected them all that much, whether it was the COVID or the flu. But this is the individual here, and apparently she is related to J.D. Vance. I don't know if that's related to the story at all, but it could be political if the doctors knew who she is and who she's related to, but it's more than likely just the politics of vaccines in general, which I don't think you should bar someone from getting a transplant just because they won't take a certain vaccine that you want them to take. That's utterly ridiculous. If they're like perfectly healthy otherwise and they're able to get the transplant perfectly fine, you shouldn't bar them just because they won't get a stupid vaccine. Like it's not even a real vaccine. It's not made the same way other vaccines are made, and it's just different. It's not actually a vaccine. But the hospital requires transplant patients to be vaccinated and declined to make an exemption even when told it goes against the family's religious beliefs as non-denominational Christians, the parents said. I thought, wow. So it's not about the kid. It's not about saving her life. Janine Deal told the newspaper of the hospital's decision to deny her daughter. Yeah, it's not about health. It's about an agenda. And the agenda is they want everyone to be vaccinated regardless of how they feel about it or anything like that. I mean, during the Biden administration, they tried to force companies into getting people vaccinated, which thankfully not a lot of people complied with, but people did lose jobs. I have family members that lost jobs. We just recently saw Donald Trump reinstate all the military members that were kicked out of the military because they refused to get the vaccine. So many people had their lives affected simply because they wouldn't take an experimental vaccine. That's the other issue I have with vaccines, or not vaccines, but the COVID vaccine specifically. It's not tested. It's not been proven safe. Usually with vaccines, they will test them for years and years to prove that they're safe. But the test that we do have from the COVID-19 testing from the companies that created it, the testing shows that it causes myocarditis and all kinds of other health issues. And now that's not for everyone. I know plenty of people in my family even that have taken the vaccine and they're perfectly fine. They're perfectly healthy, as far as we're aware. But that doesn't mean there isn't side effects. So there are definitely side effects to these vaccines, but people just want you to take it just because they're worried about. One of the arguments was if you don't get vaccinated, it affects me. It affects the people that are vaccinated because you're going to get them sick. Well, if the vaccine worked, then you wouldn't have to worry about other people getting vaccinated. That was one of the funniest things during the pandemic was people making the claim that vaccinated people are still getting sick because non-vaccinated people are getting the illness and giving it to them. That doesn't make any sense. If the vaccine worked as it was intended to work, then you wouldn't have to worry about other people getting not vaccinated. If you got vaccinated, it's supposed to protect you from the illness, right? So why would other people not getting vaccinated affect you? The answer is it shouldn't, but it was, and that's because the vaccine didn't work. So besides the health complications that came from the vaccine, it didn't even do its job. So why would I get something that A, doesn't work, and B, might even cause me permanent health issues? Logically, it just doesn't make sense. So why would you get it? But I mean, me personally, I didn't get the vaccine, and I never plan on getting the COVID vaccine. If we have something like the bird flu that's going around, if that started spreading as quick as COVID-19 was spreading, yeah, I would probably take a vaccine for that because that has a more than 50% chance of killing people. So, if you thought people freaked out during COVID because of a less than 1% chance of people dying, just imagine the bird flu spreading just as quick as COVID-19. People would flip the hell out. I mean, half the planet dying. That would be crazy. I would definitely take a vaccine for that, experimental or not. But the mom who believes the vaccines are unsafe said she and her husband decided not to vaccinate Adeline against COVID-19 or the flu after the Holy Spirit put it in our hearts. The vaccination against preventable disease are recommended for transplant recipients because those patients are much more vulnerable to infection. Again, even if she were to get COVID or she were to get the flu, it affects people with comorbidities far more than it affects people that are healthy. Now, obviously, she's not healthy. She needs a heart transplant. But if she is already having heart issues, why would you take the chances with a vaccine that doesn't even necessarily work? And that's the other issue is they're more susceptible to or more vulnerable to infections. Okay, well, the vaccine for COVID doesn't prevent against infection anyway. So that's just redundant. It doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. But of course, this little girl now doesn't get her heart transplant simply because she didn't want to take an experimental vaccine or drug or whatever you want to call it. For patients with severe illness like Adeline, who has Ebstein's anomaly and Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, there's a higher risk of death if infected with COVID-19 compared to other patients. According to Dr. Camille Cotton, the clinical director of transplant and immunocompromised host infectious diseases at Massachusetts General Hospital. The first year after transplant is when they're at higher risk for infection, but they do have a lifelong risk of severe disease, and transplant patients are still dying because of COVID-19. Janine, however, said she was confident her family, including her 11 other children, would not have any problems with COVID-19 after the transplant. So again, if they're immunocompromised, yes, they have a higher chance of dying, but the chances of someone getting COVID and then passing away still aren't all that high. I think the highest rate that I read while looking at numbers was 3.3%. So out of 1,000 people, that's like 30, like 33. Out of 1,000,000, that's like maybe 300, like 330. Like that might sound like a lot, but it's really not. Like when you look at all these other issues that we have in the world or other health issues that you could have, that's really not a lot. That's not a high chance. And we don't have solid numbers from COVID-19 because it was never tested. We don't know the rates at which people get permanent lifelong issues from the vaccine because they refuse to test it. Because me personally, my opinion on it, they refuse to test it because they know what it will show. They know that it'll show that it's highly ineffective and causes a lot more health issues than we think it does. If I had to guess, I'm not even going to speculate on the percentage because I'm sure that the likelihood of you getting a lifelong permanent condition from taking the vaccine is just as likely as you dying from COVID. So it's not worth it. It really isn't. And it's certainly not a reason to ban someone or bar someone from getting a transplant. If that's the decision they want to make with their own health. And I saw a tweet on X. It was like, oh, where's the My Body, My Choice people? Which was another funny thing during COVID. It's like all these people that want to support abortion and stuff. And they're like, oh, my body, my choice. But they don't even, but I mean, it is somewhat consistent because the same people that say my body, my choice don't want you to have a choice in whether or not you get a vaccine, just like they don't want to have, or give the baby a choice on whether it gets to live or not. So it's actually highly consistent, as ironic as it is, but it is what it is, I guess. Hopefully she can get her transplant elsewhere at a hospital that is more scientifically based. We'll take it as we can if it happens, but I know I cannot put this vaccine in her body knowing what we know and how we feel about it. Even besides the health complications that could come from the vaccine or the health complications that could come from COVID, I mean, if they have religious beliefs that bar them from getting a vaccine, that's incredibly discriminatory to bar them from getting a transplant because of their religious belief. That's just another point on the board for just how ridiculous this is. A Cincinnati Children's spokesperson declined to confirm that Adeline had been kept off the transplant list, but told the Inquirer that the hospital's clinical decisions are guided by science, research, and best practices, and that the hospital follows guidelines from the National Institutes of Health. We tailor care plans to each patient in collaboration with their family to ensure the safest, most effective treatment. Spokesperson Bo McMillan said, and then Adeline's parents now hope to take her to a different transplant center that won't require her to be vaccinated, with a GoFundMe for the transplant raising more than $50,000 as of Wednesday morning. So yeah, no, this is absolutely ridiculous. We're in 2025. We're talking about a pandemic that is long gone, and we're still trying to vaccinate people for something that had a less than 1% chance of them actually being truly affected by it. I had COVID a few times. It's not fun, but I would liken it to having a flu. Like it's not that bad in terms of getting sick. Now, if you're immunocompromised, yeah, it's going to be worse, but so is getting the flu. So is getting the flu, it'll be worse for you. So is getting anything. It'll be worse for you if you're immunocompromised. That's kind of the point of being immunocompromised. But there's also all kinds of issues with the vaccine. Like there are some studies that we have related to the vaccine that shows that you're more, it lowers your white blood cell count and you're less likely to be able to fight infection long term. So it's like, oh, let me get a vaccine for something that's not going to prevent illness, and then it's actually going to make me more immunocompromised in the not so distant future. So it doesn't make any sense. It honestly doesn't, and I don't know what kind of repercussions this hospital can get, but I mean, this is their repercussion. They're just getting backlash online, I guess. Absolutely tragic for this family, and I sincerely hope they find somewhere where they will get a transplant. They should not be barred due to religious or political beliefs. It's ridiculous. We're in 2025 now. COVID's gone. We know a lot more about COVID. COVID is not a real issue, and it never was. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. We'll see if this video stays up on YouTube. I know YouTube doesn't like you talking about vaccines, but if you agree, disagree, however you feel, let me know down in the comments below. Or take it over to X, argue with me on X. I'll respond to you there as well. But thank you guys for tuning in today. Like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year. That is a goal of mine. And thank you. Peace out.